Hello, welcome to Friday's ESPN FC Live. Mark Donaldson alongside Rob Dawson and Janusz Mihalik. Nice to be home, Rob, after a couple of days in Germany.
It is, yeah, two fantastic games. Obviously looking forward to seeing how they're going to end next week and who gets that Champions League final, but the first legs were fantastic.
Yeah, and Janusz, plenty football this week and a good weekend to come.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I was, traveling, but, here I am at home ready to talk about Manchester United of all teams.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Thank you for setting us up. We're going to talk about Ten Hag. This is all about an article that Rob is publishing this weekend for ESPN. It's the case for and the case against. We're going to look at the title race this weekend with Arsenal and Manchester City both in action, along with Liverpool Spurs on Sunday, transfer talk and various other things. Let's start with Erik Ten Hag. Now, there's been a lot of talk about his future, and there'll be a lot more over the next half hour. But he's met the press this week, and he's been speaking about lots of different things. Let's hear some of the things he had to say before we react to it.
So let's see this. Yesterday he played very good, and we talked more about it. He's a very good player. And yesterday he showed why Manchester United bought him. He showed also that he represents a high value for Manchester United. So which is good. And so I'm happy for Jadon with his performance from yesterday. And we will see what's going to happen in the future. It's a joke, but that is as long as I worked there every summer, every window, I think 200 players getting an interest from Manchester United. We did some research, which untrue. And also every summer where we sell all the players in our squad. And so you making all the headlines, which is untrue. So I think be calm and also but take some responsibility when you make such a headline. Find a good source if there is some truth in it, and this is totally crap.
Melissa.
Well, Rob Dawson, that little bit at the end, that wasn't very Disney. It was basically, he said everything he did while he was smiling because it's totally crap and all the other things as well, because he was asked about speculation, he was asked about Jadon Sancho and lots of other things as well. Erik Ten Hag. Question I've got for you. Will Erik Ten Hag be in a position in September to be picking Jadon Sancho for Manchester United with Ten Hag as the Manchester United manager once the transfer window closes?
Well, I mean, there are two massive ifs with that. Is Ten Hag going to still be the manager of Man United in September? Is Jadon Sancho still going to be at the club in September? Yep. I think lots of people at Man United, despite how well Jadon played in that Champions League semi-final against PSG, are still planning for him to leave the club in the summer. United, as things stand, are planning for the summer with Erik Ten Hag in charge. And there are a lot of people at Man United who think that the relationship between Sancho and Ten Hag is broken beyond repair. Everyone will know that the only reason Sancho is at Borussia Dortmund at all is because he publicly criticised his manager. He was asked to apologise for his posts on social media. He refused to do that and has still refused to do that. And the situation got to the point where he wasn't training with the first team squad anymore. In January, it was decided that it was in everyone's best interests to leave. Obviously, Borussia Dortmund have been the beneficiaries of that and have got a very good player and it's helped them get to the Champions League semi-final. But I think in terms of does Jadon Sancho have a future at Man United under Erik Ten Hag, I think the answer to that is probably no. That relationship probably would have been fixed a long time ago if it ever was going to be. We're now sort of 8-9 months down the line after the initial indiscretion. If you're not apologising after 9 months, you're probably not apologising at all.
Okay, Janusz, simple question for you based on Rob's answer and my question to him. Come September, transfer window's closed. Who's more likely to be at Old Trafford, Erik Ten Hag or Jadon Sancho?
Maybe neither. because look, I mean, as Rob was saying, this was two strong personalities, right? And we don't know who was in the right, and I suppose Ten Hag has his reasons. I always feel that when you have such an asset that costs a lot of money, that there should be a way, because with Erik Ten Hag, I've mentioned before, I don't think he should be there at the end of the day. I'm giving him benefit of the doubt because I don't think he's a bad coach. I do, however, think that he's a very bad communicator, right? I mean, when we listen to him about games, coaches often say that, but I think he's convinced that Manchester United are a very good team and they should have won majority of the games based on the way they play. And I don't buy that, right? I mean, I've heard stories from managers. They protect the club themselves a little bit and players sometimes. But when I listen to Erik Ten Hag after games where they're just being pummeled, and he continues to tell me that the team had a couple of chances here and there where opposition outshoots him 33-1 in many of the games, whatever. I'm not just talking about Liverpool, but the top teams. It just tells me that I don't know, maybe the reality in Erik Ten Hag had in terms of himself as a manager, where United are and how good they are a couple of different stories here. So in terms of Jadon Sancho, sometimes it's just the environment, right? Maybe it wasn't right for him. Maybe it's not just about Ten Hag. Maybe it's just about Manchester. Maybe it's about Premier League. Maybe it's Bundesliga, where he feels wanted, where he feels he's going to get the freedom to be maybe Jadon Sancho.
Robin, one of your answers, you made the point about Erik Ten Hag's future and a suggestion that he may indeed be in charge next season. If he is, why would he be? Would it be because they haven't found a sufficient replacement? Would it be because they've already kind of cleared the decks of those above him, the executives, and those who've brought players to the football club? There's going to be big changes next season. Are those the two main reasons, if Erik Ten Hag stays at Manchester United, why he'll be staying there?
Yeah, it would certainly be a combination of factors. The main one would be that the new owners who have come in, Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, have already made the point that over the last 10 years, that they believe that United haven't been successful, not because they haven't hired good coaches, it's because the coaches haven't had the right environment to work in. We've discussed on this show a number of times that the sporting structure at Man United just hasn't been right. And it hasn't been right for David Moyes. It wasn't right for Louis van Gaal, for Jose Mourinho, for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And it hasn't been right for Erik Ten Hag. And in their opinion, they want to fix that sporting structure first and then see if they can find a coach who fits into that. Obviously, that would play in Erik Ten Hag's favour because ultimately he would get a chance, or the first chance, in this new structure to see if he can make that work. The other factors would be that United's finances are already stretched. Erik Ten Hag is under contract for another year, so there would be compensation due to him and his coaching staff if United were to make a change and to sack him. That's money that United really can't afford to lose. You made the point there. Is there an obvious successor? Probably not. If you look on social media or talk to the fans that go to these games, everyone is completely split about who they would bring in to replace Ten Hag if that change was made. And again, that would seem to favour Ten Hag. It would also mean that the Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe have listened to Ten Hag about the issues he's faced, and the reasons for this poor season haven't just been down to the manager. He said a number of times that he's been affected by injuries. He's had his defence decimated for most of the season. Key players like Luke Shaw and Lisandro Martinez haven't played at all. He's also had problems with the recruitment. He's not had the players in who he's wanted. A couple of key ones, the likes of Frenkie de Jong in his first summer, Harry Kane last summer. So there are all these factors that, even though that this has been an unbelievably poor season, and I think Ten Hag would probably accept that, it's been underwhelming, frustrating, disappointing, but there are other reasons at play there. There are other factors behind that. And while Ten Hag has obviously made quite a few mistakes in that, there is a case for him to stay. And I don't think it's as cut and dried as, poor season, the manager must go.
Janusz, is Erik Ten Hag the right guy at the wrong time, or does he just not fit into this role and United are better off in the summer looking elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a funny thing because I sort of agree with Rob in his assessment, even though I'm not the biggest Ten Hag fan. I suppose. I was in the first year, but what I'm seeing right now, injuries aside, look at Newcastle United. Look at their injuries. I mean, they may be ahead of them, and who knows, maybe Chelsea even catches up with them. And we all know the sort of injuries they have to deal with. So to a degree, I don't buy that. But I do believe that is the environment. I think Ralph Rangnick was pretty open about that. We've seen a number of big managers that haven't been able to get it done. And I think at some stage you say to yourself, well, let's give him another year. We've seen a good one. We've seen a pretty bad one. Maybe if the infrastructure and everything that's happening outside of the pitch changes with the new ownership, with the new investment, with people that are really going to try to find a foundation, so not only Ten Hag, but the players can succeed in, then perhaps why not? We've seen Stranger Things. As I've said, I don't think that Ten Hag is a bad manager. But the one thing I can get past is that he knew what he was getting into it. And I know, Mark, you're probably going to ask that. When I hear those quotes about Frankie de Jong, when I hear the quotes about Harry Kane, I mean, that was always pie in the sky. I don't see that. I never saw this as an opportunity. Were there promises that were absolutely broken to him? Because knowing what Manchester United were all about, I mean, why did Ten Hag go there, knowing that he's not going to be able to play his style? I mean, some of the players that he's gotten, right? The issues at center back. Well, I mean, did you not know that Varane is pretty much done? Johnny Evans and Maguire and all these players. I mean, that was well known. And so that's where I have questions about him.
Okay, finally, before we look ahead to the title race this weekend, I'm going to briefly give both of you the list of the odds, who's favourite for Manchester United, and whether or not you think any one of these that I'm going to mention will be the next Manchester United boss this summer, or whether you think Erik Ten Hag will stay in his spot that he has right now. Thomas Tuchel's the 5-2 favourite. Gareth Southgate is 9-2. Graham Potter is 5-1. Roberto Di Zerbi is 11-1. Zinedine Zidane's 12, and Julian Nagelsmann is 14. Janusz, any of those take your fancy, or are you picking Ten Hag to stay over any of them?
The only name that I could see is Thomas Tuchel. Well, we all know that how much he loves Premier League. I think he sees himself at what happened at Chelsea as a point to prove. I think strong mentality, obviously, sort of like Ten Hag in that regard. I think managers of his ilk probably feel that they can go and fix it because it is Manchester United, and the fact that there's a change at the club. So I could see that. That's the only name other than Ten Hag. I wouldn't spend 1 cent on anybody else there because it's impossible.
Yeah, you wouldn't get rich either. Just 5-2 favourite. So 6 names for you as well, Rob, or you can stick with Ten Hag as Manchester United's manager next season when it begins. Who are you going for?
I think because there are significant issues with every single name on that list would lead me to think that it's going to be Erik Ten Hag. Obviously, there are still 4 Premier League games to go. Things could get an awful lot worse for Man United this season. They've got an FA Cup final against Man City. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that ends in quite a humiliating defeat. So, things could change between now and the end of the season. But if you're looking at that list, there are so many issues with all of those candidates on there. I think right now, the most likely situation is that Erik Ten Hag is manager on the first day next season.
Rob, just quickly, because you've mentioned, the cup final is one thing. It's important because it's a trophy, but it's probably even more important because it's Manchester City, right? If they were to lose that, and as I've said, what if they're out of Europe altogether? What are the like point or two between, Newcastle and Chelsea right behind them? I mean, even if they think to keep him right now, imagine they finish 8th or 9th, whatever it may be. Do they change their mind? Because I just can't see it how you would stand that.
Yeah, I mean, and that is the problem, I think, with getting to this far down the line with this debate still ongoing. To a certain extent, Radcliffe has created this himself by not saying anything about the manager for or against. This vacuum of information has been filled with loads of speculation and debate about Ten Hag's future. So Jim Radcliffe needs to take responsibility a little bit for that. And you're right. Could you possibly get to a situation where you wait to the FA Cup final and think, well, if United win the FA Cup final, we keep Ten Hag, and if they lose, we change the manager. Well, what if City get a player sent off in the first minute and United win 4-0? Or what if it comes down to a dodgy penalty decision in the last minute and City nick a 1-0 win? Are you judging a manager on one moment or on one debatable decision in a game? That really is the problem with getting this far down the line before making a decision. Ultimately, you need to assess Ten Hag's entire 2-year reign and decide whether he is the guy that you want to carry on moving forward. As of right now, I genuinely don't think that Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his team know. And that, as a United fan, if I was a United fan, that would worry me.
And what if the frame rate on the camera used by VAR was even better than it is right now, and the goal against Coventry that they scored against Manchester United should have counted? Let's not go there. Let's move on. The title race. It looks like it's Arsenal against Man City. City, the favourites, game in hand, 1 point behind. Arsenal starting early. They've got Bournemouth, Manchester City. They're late on Saturday against Wolves. Before we chat about these two games, let's hear from the two managers that are in charge of the top two teams.
Just focus and put all your energy and focus in determination and that willingness to do our best to earn the right to win games. And the first one is Bournemouth. It's at home. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere again towards the game, and just be present and be in the moment and let's see what happens. It's what it is. We played in many different scenarios this season, and we are clear. Our job is clear. We have to win our game, and then we have to wait, and the only thing that we can focus on is on that.
When everybody's fit, everybody has to be ready. I don't know exactly what they're going to do tomorrow. Of course, I know have a little doubts for one or two players in the lineup, but the rest, the game plan and what I want to do, I had time to think about it and see the last games from Wolves, and yeah, but he's ready. Yeah.
To come into the Premier League and know what he's done, huge credit to him, the coaching staff, and the players. Obviously, they have a difficult start. They kept doing what they believed in, and huge credit. It's unbelievable what they've done in the manner that they've done it as well, which is, in my opinion, very important as well. And yeah, congratulate them because it's a fantastic achievement.
So on paper, it looks like it should be a comfortable 3 points. But Mikel Arteta there, Janusz, ending by praising Bournemouth Andoni Iraola, who, if you remember, wasn't able to get his assistant over because of visa problems. And a lot of people were saying, Gary O'Neill, why is he being made the scapegoat? So the decision was taken for Iraola. He's done well. How big a threat are Bournemouth for Arsenal in the early kickoff?
Well, of course it will be. I mean, the threat is in the heads of the Arsenal players, right? And we talk about this journey for Arsenal. And you know, in the past, we've talked about the journey of Liverpool when they came within 1 point, the 98, 97. I continue to say this because I think it's important. You have to learn how to be champions. For Arsenal last season, I think we all knew that they weren't quite ready. They are right now. As I've said, and I'll repeat it again, I think for me, Arsenal's been the best team this season in the Premier League. That's proven by the statistics. I think the way they play, the identity has never changed. I'm not saying that Manchester City's changed, but certainly this is not the same Manchester City at their best, which in itself is great for City that they still can find the ways to motivate themselves and play at such a level. But I think if Arsenal were to win this, I don't think nobody would question that because they work hard and they absolutely would have deserved it. But I'm sticking with Manchester City. It's going to be game by game. This is not going to be easy because that pressure is going to be immense. I think Manchester City at home will take care of a Wolves. So it's a week by week, I suppose. And we've said it, right? It's Arsenal going to Old Trafford against United and perhaps Manchester City going away to Spurs. But Spurs, after what we've seen against the hammering against Newcastle, losing to Arsenal and now just losing yesterday to Chelsea, I wonder if this is the moment that Pep Guardiola guess what? First win, maybe even first goal at that stadium. So I don't know. I still think it's Manchester City to lose.
We'll speak about City in a second and their game against Wolves. I just love the thought of Arsenal fans supporting Spurs against Manchester City. It's this stage of the season. You always support your own team and usually another team depending on who is playing. Question for you, Rob. What's the harder game for Arsenal? Home to Bournemouth or away to Manchester United, which is their next fixture?
United. and that might seem strange because United aren't playing particularly well. But you can imagine that the Arsenal dressing room is looking at those next 3 games, thinking if we can get through that United game, that's the one. It's dangerous. United haven't been playing well, but they have on occasion turned it on against the bigger teams. Liverpool drew 2-2 at Old Trafford. Arsenal lost there last season. City lost there last season. It is a game late in a title race fraught with danger. United are particularly unpredictable. You can see Arsenal going there and winning 3 or 4-1. You can also see it ending in a draw or United even nicking a win. But I think Arsenal, obviously they're not going to get ahead of themselves. They're not going to be looking beyond Bournemouth because why would you? But I think Arsenal fans and maybe a couple of those players in the dressing room are looking at that Man United game thinking that is the one, particularly because City have got to go to Spurs and City's record at Spurs is absolutely dreadful. And even though Spurs aren't playing well, again, you'd be looking at those games thinking that's where this is going to be won and lost.
Okay, Janusz, what's Ivan Toney and the Etihad got in common? Why would I be bringing up his name at this time while previewing Man City Wolves?
I don't, because you looked at the stats that I'm, as always, unaware of. You tell me.
He was the last player to score the winning goal for an away team at Manchester City in the Premier League. He scored in the 90th minute, one of 2 goals that he scored in November 2022. So it's been a while since City tasted defeat at home. Even a draw would be a sore one to take. They're not going to slip up against Wolves, are they?
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, strange things do happen. Every one of us is probably thinking that there's going to be a twist in all of this because that's what usually happens and you just don't know where. And it very often comes in matches that you don't expect. We were just talking about the big ones because they pick themselves, of course, right? United have a reason to play, right? All those players are for re-election and being in front of Erik Ten Hag or maybe a new manager. It's an embarrassing season or possibility of one. So I think knowing that they're not in the Champions League, I think that you're going to see United responding just a little bit towards the end of the season. That very often happens. In terms of Wolves, I just think City in particular at home and in general, I just eyes on the prize. There's history to be made. Obviously, winning 4 Premier League titles in a row. It's been their decade. It's been incredible, right? Their comparisons in terms of Manchester City to Sir Alex Ferguson, the old Liverpool matches. There'll be talk about who's the greatest team ever. So in England and all of that. And I think I also think that for Manchester City and 1 or 2 or 3 key players, this may be the end of the road for them as well. So you always want to finish on a good note. I don't think Wolves should pose a problem there.
Rob, any issue whatsoever as far as Arsenal are concerned or Man City are concerned that Arsenal are playing first, then Man City? Because next weekend it's City first up when they go to Fulham, and then Arsenal aren't in action until the Sunday when they go to Old Trafford. So I suppose, eeksy peeksy, it's fair this weekend, and then it swaps around next weekend. Yeah,
I mean, the managers would always tell you that it doesn't matter, but these title races come down to such fine margins that you never know. If Arsenal win that game against Bournemouth in the early kickoff, and then City are playing the late kickoff against Wolves, yeah, of course, the City players will be well aware of that Arsenal result. They may have a little bit of more of a spring in their step if they know that Bournemouth have gone in there and nicked a point and they're even further, or have a bigger advantage in the title race. If Arsenal were to win, the pressure is on a little bit more that City, have to do the job against Wolves. All these little things matter. Managers and players will tell you that they don't, but when you get to this stage of the season, these really tight title races where it's coming down to the odd point or the odd goal, every little thing matters. If Arsenal can put the pressure on in the morning by beating Bournemouth and beating Bournemouth well, the pressure will then be on City. That the problem is with this City team is that they know exactly how to deal with this. They've been here so many times before. They've been in this situation so many times before with a core of players who have done it again and again and again. Obviously, this comment now is going to come back to bite me, but they just don't lose games at this stage of a season when there are titles on the line. History has shown that. That's why they've won the last 3 Premier League titles and they're going for a record 4th in a row.
Both title contenders in action on Saturday this weekend. Liverpool take on Spurs on Sunday. We're going to stay with Arsenal as we wrap up Friday's ESPN FC Live. And we're going to talk transfers. And I'm going to speak about one that's been linked with Manchester United shortly. But Gabriel Jesus has been linked with a move away from Arsenal. However, Mikel Arteta in his press conference saying, no, he is going nowhere. Janusz, is Gabriel Jesus enough as far as the striking department is concerned for Arsenal now that they've got an informed Kai Havertz scoring and providing assists?
Well, I mean, I agree with Mikel Arteta. I don't think that Gabriel Jesus is going anywhere unless he himself wants to go, obviously. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's a case of Arsenal to just adding to it. I mean, that's the progress. Well, I don't know, progress or process that we've seen. Because as we've said it, Arsenal has done a tremendous job by utilizing what? Let's say core of 14, 15 players for the most part. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus has had a number of injuries as well that derailed this season a little bit because he was absolutely outstanding early on in the season as well, if you remember, until that first injury that he suffered. I think he probably understands that his role is a little bit different. He's learned that in Manchester City, thought that perhaps he could become the number 9, which we all thought that he was going to be when he came to Manchester City. Pep Guardiola wanted him to be that one, if I remember correctly, kind of envisioned him replacing Kun Agüero at the time, then pushed him out wide. I think same thing's kind of happening to him or will happen to him now, but you just add to that, right? Because if Arsenal don't win it for some reason this year, there'll be favorites next season as well. I think the Champions League is going to be looked at differently as well. I think they're going to be going for all the trophies because they would have matured, but they also know that in terms of true squad strength, it's not there yet. So I don't see how they would get rid of Gabriel Jesus. They just need to add another 2 or 3 players to it.
The other transfer rumour that I want to talk to you about, Rob, is Michael Olise. This has been mentioned in an article by James Ollie, our ESPN FC colleague, and potentially Manchester United linked for between 50 and 60 million. Now, they could have had him for about 15 million less than that due to the clause in the contract, but that has now increased. I watched that first half against West Ham when Olise played, when Eze played. They were just swashbuckling. He's one of the most talented young English talents. Could he be Old Trafford bound from what you're hearing?
He's certainly been on their radar and a player that they like and they've looked at. Again, though, the issue with Man United summer is going to be the finances and how tight they are. I think that Olise would probably improve any Premier League team, let alone Man United. The problem that Man United have got is that they've already got Rashford and Anthony. Greenwood is still on the books and Sancho is still on the books. They've got Garnacho as well. They're probably going to have to let a couple of those players go. And historically, United haven't been very good at selling players. They just haven't got the fees in that they've needed to be able to help them build the squad or improve it going forward. So, definitely a player that United have looked at and would like to sign. But it's their entire summer is going to be based on how they manage those tight finances. That I think it's far more important for them this summer that they get the right players out for the right transfer fees and then use that in the right way to bring in the right players. Time and time again, we've seen United just haven't been able to get rid of the players that they don't want. They haven't been able to bring in these fees, and it's stopped them signing the players that they actually do want. So, hopefully, if it is Erik Ten Hag or a different manager, they can finally do that this summer with a better sporting structure, better people in the right positions to make that happen. And players like Olise will be able to come in and thrive in hopefully what would be a positive environment.
Finally, there are many millions of you that play Fantasy Premier League. You have 1 hour exactly, if you're watching us live, to make any transfers for this week. That's because it's Luton Town against Everton on a Friday today. Now, Everton have really picked up form of late, especially at home. And Oggy, our very own Mark Ogden, had a chance to sit down with Jordan Pickford this week to talk about how the points deductions have galvanised the Toffees.
You take the points deduction away, and you look at our performances apart from before. I know we had a sticky patch, not won in 15 or something, but apart from that, the results, the wins, the draws have all been good. Then you get hit with points deductions. It's how you reset as a team. How do you come back? And I think we went after the first one. We went on 4 wins on the bounce. So the mentality side there as a squad has been brilliant. And then it's been you get them hits, you get them knocks, and you keep fighting. And you know, if you haven't won so long, you're always going to find something as a team within that, and something's going to click and get them wins, and which we managed to do in the last 3 games, and it's been a really good week.
I mean, the first deduction, the 10 points. As a group of players, how did you feel at that point? You think 10 points is a big gap to close, and obviously it's been reduced since, but at that moment, was there a sense of that actually bringing everybody together and giving you a sense of, well, a target really to close that gap and stay up?
Yeah, I think that's what we did. 1-4 on the bounce, and it was just one of them, like, we're up the wall here kind of thing, and how we're going to get out of that. And yeah, we went and got some results, and then it was kind of, yeah, but then the next thing was we were listening, waiting, we're listening how many points we're going to get back, when's that going to happen, and that just feeds in slowly into the camp when you don't really want it to, but it just naturally does, you know, with the press, with everything, social media, it kind of just feeds in, and people start talking about it, then you start probably thinking too much and forgetting other things on the football pitch. And yeah, so then we managed. I think we got 4 points back from the first one. So yeah, I think initially we were just going along nicely. That yeah, we've been hit by, but it's fine. And then it sort of crept in, but then we reset and go again. Then we got more points taken off us.
I mean, I know last season it was the last day survival job, wasn't it? So that showed you how close you can get. So when those points came off, were you thinking, this is the Premier League, a tough league, to have a 10-point deduction? Mm-hmm. You must have been worried that this might be the year that we finally, not run out of luck, but just it happens.
Yeah, the good side of it was the teams where we were at the time, there wasn't much difference, you know, in the bottom 4 or 5. There was teams struggling down the bottom, so we had that bit of freedom to go and keep playing, because the teams around us, it wasn't a massive gap where I know we've lost 10 points, but we didn't have to actually gain that many more to get out of the relegation zone. So I think that was a bit of freedom in itself.
Okay, Luton against Everton this afternoon, 3 o'clock Eastern time, 8 p.m. local time, if you're watching in the United Kingdom. We're going to end today by looking ahead to what's coming up on ESPN Plus this weekend. You don't normally get Ipswich Town and Huddersfield Town on ESPN2, but that is the case, and Ipswich Town needing just a point. They might even get up if they lose, depending on what happens with Leeds. Get up nice and early for that one. ESPN2 from 7 a.m. and ESPN Plus. Double helping of the leaders in La Liga, 1, 2, and 3, all in action this weekend. I'll be on the call for Real Madrid against Cadiz at 10:15, and that is followed by Girona taking on Barcelona. The rivalry, who is going to finish in second spot behind Real Madrid. Coverage begins at 12 with kickoff at 12:30. And then on Sunday, they've done it again, Bayer Leverkusen, with that victory over Roma at Stadio Olimpico on Thursday in the Europa League. Can they keep the unbeaten run going? Can they go the whole season without losing a game? It's a tough one for them at Eintracht Frankfurt on Sunday. Big day in the Premier League as well. It's Arsenal first up against Bournemouth, followed by Manchester City against Wolves in the late game. Whichever game you're watching this weekend, or games, or even if you're going to a match, enjoy it, and we will speak to you again soon. Bye for now.